quiet spaces between seasons, where the air hums with the soft rhythm of nature, creativity finds its most gentle form. Welcome to TERAFLORA Studio, a place where discarded things are reborn, where everyday objects bloom into unexpected beauty, and where gardens become more than just soil and plants. They become living stories. Today, we will walk together through a collection of ideas inspired by resourcefulness and care. You will see how bottles can sway like lanterns in the breeze, how old wood can cradle wildflowers, and how even the smallest details can welcome bees, butterflies, and other pollinators into your world. These are not just projects for the hands. They are invitations for the heart, a way to weave art, ecology, and personal expression into one gentle tapestry. Before we begin, it is important to share this clearly. This content has been thoughtfully composed with the assistance of AI. Every word and image has been shaped with intention, drawing from a blend of human creativity and the unique perspective of technology, to bring you something that feels warm, possible, and personal. As you listen, let the pace slow. Imagine your own space, however large or small, and how these ideas might take root there. Whether you are working with a wide garden or a single sunny windowsill, the magic lies in the care you give and the joy you take in creating. If you find yourself inspired, if these moments of shared imagination feel like a welcome pause in your day, I warmly invite you to subscribe to TERAFLORA Studio. It is the simplest way to walk with us again, to discover more ways of turning the ordinary into something quietly extraordinary. Now, let us step into the first story. There's a quiet joy in giving something old a second chance. In one corner of the garden, sunlight catches the glint of tin and the shimmer of leaves, and you realize, this is where beauty and resourcefulness meet. What once held coffee, beans, or soda now cradles life, blooming in colors that invite both people and pollinators to linger. You start with something humble, an empty can, perhaps dented, perhaps plain. With a little soap and water, you wash away its past purpose, leaving behind a blank canvas. In your hands, it becomes a vessel for something new. Pebbles pressed into glue one by one until the surface feels like a riverbed. Or perhaps bright paint, each brushstroke carrying a whisper of spring. The transformation is slow but steady, the kind that feels more like meditation than work. Once finished, you mount them along a sunny wall or fence, each in a pocket of life. You choose your plants with care. Lavender for its sweet scent and purple sway, marigolds for their cheer and pest-deterring magic, and mint for its fresh perfume and quiet usefulness. It's more than just decoration. Each bloom calls to bees with the promise of nectar. Each leaf offers shelter to tiny lives that keep the garden thriving. When the afternoon sun leans across the yard, the cans glow in warm light. You notice a butterfly resting on a marigold, wings still as it soaks in the heat. A bee moves purposefully from lavender stem to lavender stem, a worker in the great cycle of growth. The colors are bright but not showy, the kind that makes a garden feel alive without overwhelming it. Perhaps you sit for a while watching the play of shadow and wing. This little project has turned a blank wall into a chorus of blooms, a stage for the small dramas of nature. And the best part? You didn't spend a fortune. You didn't even leave home to find your materials. This is the magic of upcycling. Not just saving money, but saving character, giving the ordinary a chance to become extraordinary. The next time you finish a can of coffee or soda, don't throw it away. Imagine instead where it might hang, what it might hold, and the wings it might welcome. There's something deeply satisfying about preparing a space not for yourself, but for the smallest of guests. On a warm afternoon, when the garden hums quietly with life, a butterfly drifts in, pauses midair, and glides down to rest on a shallow bowl of nectar. You watch as its delicate wings open and close in the sun, catching flashes of orange, blue, and gold. These feeders are simple in form, yet generous in spirit. You begin with a few shallow bowls, perhaps old ceramic dishes, mismatched saucers, or thrifted treasures that have been waiting for a second life. You line each one with smooth pebbles, giving the butterflies a place to rest without fear of slipping. Then, you add what they truly come for. A little sugar water, perhaps a slice of orange or watermelon. The sweetness, a quiet invitation. Placement matters. You tuck the feeders among flowers, letting color and scent work together to guide your visitors in. Lavender, zinnias, and marigold sway gently in the breeze, their blooms acting as both decoration and signpost. Before long, the feeders are no longer still. They are alive with movement. A swallowtail leans down to sip. A painted lady hovers briefly before finding her spot. A bee lands nearby, content to share the feast. This is more than an ornament in the garden. It's an act of hospitality. By offering a reliable source of nectar, you help sustain these pollinators during dry spells, when blooms may be scarce. And in return, they keep your garden alive, moving from flower to flower, carrying the invisible threads of life. What makes this project beautiful is that it's within reach for anyone. There's no need for expensive materials or complex tools. A bowl, a handful of stones, a bit of sweetness, that's all it takes. Yet the impact stretches far beyond your fence line. Each butterfly you welcome plays a part in a much larger story, one that connects your backyard to meadows, orchards, and wild hillsides miles away. As the sun begins to lower, the feeders glint softly. The wings that visited today will be gone by dusk, but their memory will linger. Tomorrow they or others will return, drawn not just by the food, but by the space you've created. A place where beauty is shared, and where nature is always welcome at the table. Sometimes, the most charming gardens grow not outward, but upward. Against the warm embrace of a sunlit wall, pockets of green and gold rise in layers, each one spilling with life. From the street, it looks like a tapestry, a patchwork of herbs, flowers, and texture, stitched together not with thread, but with imagination and care. It begins with a forgotten palette or a strip of sturdy fabric, perhaps an old pair of jeans, the denim softened by time, or burlap rescued from a coffee sack. Each pocket is a promise, waiting to be filled. You run your hands along the surface, deciding which plants will live where. Basil here for its sweet scent, lavender in the center for the bees, marigolds along the edges, their bold blooms catching the eye and the light. With soil and seed or a tray of young plants, you begin to tuck life into each space. The wall changes with every addition. It becomes more than a structure. It becomes a vertical meadow, a space where pollinators can land and linger. Bees hum from pocket to pocket, never traveling far without finding a new bloom. A butterfly hovers, deciding between rosemary's gentle flowers and the soft violet heads of thyme. The magic of a vertical garden is how it transforms small spaces. A narrow balcony becomes a pollinator's paradise. An unused fence becomes a living pantry. And because the plants are close together, tending them feels intimate. You can water, harvest, and watch them grow without taking more than a few steps. It's also a design that invites creativity. Some pockets are lined with pebbles, catching the sunlight and adding texture. Others spill over with trailing vines, softening the edges and making the whole piece feel like it's grown there naturally. You can start with just a few herbs and expand over time, letting your wall evolve with the seasons. In the late afternoon, when the light turns golden, you notice how the shadows of flowers and leaves dance across the wall. It's not just a garden anymore. It's a living mural, a partnership between your hands and the small lives it sustains. And when you snip a sprig of mint for tea or a handful of basil for dinner, you'll know you've built something that feeds both body and spirit. There is a certain kind of beauty that doesn't ask to be noticed. It simply waits. In the corner of the garden, tucked between blooms and shadows, a shallow dish holds the clearest water you've seen all day. Bees arrive first, landing lightly on smooth stones warmed by the sun. Then a butterfly glides in, folding its wings as it drinks. The movement so delicate you almost hold your breath. A pollinator bath is a simple creation, but in the eyes of these small visitors, it is a lifeline. You start with a shallow dish, perhaps ceramic, stone, or even a repurposed bowl. Into it you place smooth pebbles, each one carefully arranged so they rise above the waterline. These are not just decoration. They are landing pads, safe places for fragile legs to rest without fear of drowning. The water itself is kept shallow and clean, refreshed often so it sparkles in the light. Some days you add a pinch of sea salt or a slice of ripe fruit, turning the bath into both a drink and a source of minerals. Position it close to flowers, where scent and color will lead pollinators to it as naturally as breath follows air. Soon, it becomes more than just a garden feature. It becomes part of the daily rhythm of life outside your window. Bees visit in 2s and 3s, dipping briefly before moving on to the next bloom. Butterflies linger longer, swaying slightly as if savoring the quiet moment. Even small birds pause, splashing lightly before taking to the air again. The artistry comes in the details. You might line the edges with bright mosaic tiles, catching the sun and turning each droplet into a bead of light. Or perhaps you choose natural stone, letting the bath blend into the earth as if it has always been there. Some are raised on pedestals to meet the eyes, others rest low, inviting discovery. On warm afternoons, you'll find yourself watching the way light dances on water, how wings flicker in reflection. It's a reminder that tending a garden isn't just about growing, it's about giving. In this small gesture, you've built a place of rest, a space where life slows down. And as you watch the visitors come and go, you realize you've made something that speaks without words. You are welcome here. Some walls simply hold up a garden, others tell its story. When you work in mosaic, you turn every surface into a canvas, every fragment into a brushstroke. Here, in the dappled light of a warm afternoon, a garden wall shimmers, not from paint or plaster, but from hundreds of tiny pieces of reclaimed beauty. The mural begins as an idea sketched in your mind. A butterfly in mid-flight, a patch of wildflowers, maybe a winding path of bees. You gather your materials from what might have been forgotten, broken ceramic plates, old glass bottles, leftover tiles from a home project. Each piece is shaped by its past life, its color and texture carrying whispers of another time. With careful hands, you arrange the fragments along the wall. Blues swirl into the sky, golds and oranges form the wings of a monarch, soft greens and creams bloom into petals. The work is slow, almost meditative. You step back often, letting the design grow organically, guided as much by instinct as by plan. When the sun moves across the sky, the mural changes. In the morning, cool tones glow softly. By midday, the whole surface comes alive, light bouncing from tile to tile like ripples on water. Bees hover nearby, drawn by the real flowers planted at the mural's base. Butterflies land on the blooms, their wings echoing the ones fixed forever in stone above them. This is more than decoration. It's a permanent invitation to life. The colors mimic nature's signals, calling pollinators from a distance. The texture offers shelter in small crevices, a place for tiny creatures to pause in safety. And for anyone passing by, it's a moment of wonder, a reminder that beauty can be built from what others throw away. You don't need to be a trained artist to create something like this. All you need is patience, a steady hand, and the willingness to see potential in the broken. Start small, perhaps with a single butterfly or a single flower, and let your wall bloom piece by piece. When it's done, the mural becomes a part of the garden's voice. It speaks in color and light, in shapes and shadows, in the way it makes you pause. And like all good stories, it leaves room for more flowers to grow, more visitors to arrive, more afternoons to stand quietly and admire what your hands have made. As the sun dips below the horizon, the garden changes. The bright energy of the day softens into something slower, more intimate. It's at this hour that the lanterns begin to speak, filling the space not just with light, but with a kind of quiet enchantment. These lanterns were once ordinary things. Bottles that held water or wine, tins that kept tea or soup. You give them a new story. With a careful hand, you wrap them in smooth river pebbles, each stone catching the last glimmers of daylight. Or you take a tin can and pierce it with floral patterns, knowing that when a candle flickers inside, the shapes will spill across the walls like shadows from another world. When evening comes, they glow, not with the harsh glare of modern bulbs, but with a warm, steady shimmer. Golden light that pools on the path, dances over flower petals, and tucks itself into corners where night gathers. Every breeze shifts the shadows, turning the garden into a living play of light and dark. Some lanterns hang from tree branches, swaying gently as if in conversation with the wind. Others are fixed along the path, marking the way like guiding stars. There's no strict order. Each one is placed where it feels right, where it will catch an eye or welcome a wanderer. The beauty of upcycled lanterns lies not just in their charm, but in their kindness. Solar lights can be slipped inside glass jars, making them safe and sustainable. Tea candles can transform even the simplest container into a glowing treasure. And because they're made from what might have been discarded, they carry a certain humility, proof that beauty doesn't need to be bought. On certain nights, you'll notice more than human visitors. Moths circle the light, tiny silhouettes moving in the glow. A bee, caught out late, rests for a moment on the warmth of a pebble. The lanterns become part of the garden's living ecosystem, offering gentle guidance to creatures small and large. When you walk among them, you feel the world slow down. Each step takes you deeper into a place where the everyday becomes magical, where recycled things hold the light like secrets, and where the garden at night feels like it's telling you a story meant only for you. There's a certain poetry in taking something that once rolled down roads and turning it into something that now holds still, offering life instead of wear. A tire, weathered and forgotten in the back of a shed, becomes a stage for flowers, herbs, and pollinators. A small circle of renewal hanging quietly in the sun. You start with the simplest of materials, one old tire cleaned and dried. The rubber still holds the memory of travel, but now it's ready for a gentler purpose. You might paint it in soft pastels, letting the color reflect the season. Or perhaps you cover it in mosaic pebbles, each one pressed carefully into place until the surface feels like a patchwork riverbed. Once prepared, the tire is hung like a swing, its round form cradling either a single potted plant or a miniature garden built right inside its curve. Trailing ivy spills from the bottom like green ribbons. Bright flowers, zinnias, marigolds, lavender, stand proudly, their blooms calling to bees and butterflies. The air around it hums gently, not with engines, but with wings. Some designs use the tire as shelving. A small wooden plank runs across the circle, holding a row of clay pots. It's simple, practical, and endlessly customizable. You can change the plants with the seasons, from spring herbs to summer wildflowers to autumnal grasses. And every time, the tire gives them a frame that turns even the smallest bloom into something special. Placed along a garden wall or suspended from a sturdy tree branch, tire planters add both height and charm to a space. They break the straight lines of fences and bring softness to stone. And because they're upcycled, they're a quiet reminder that what's old can still be beautiful and useful. By late afternoon, the sunlight turns golden, catching on the edges of petals and rope. A butterfly drifts in, landing for just a moment before moving on. A bee disappears into the lavender, emerging dusted in pollen. The tire swings just slightly in the breeze, holding its small world steady against the changing day. It's a simple project, but one that makes the garden feel alive in new ways. A circle of color and life, born from something that once had nowhere else to go. In its stillness, it now moves the heart. thing you notice is not the sight, but the sound. A soft, irregular melody drifting on the breeze. Somewhere in the garden, the wind has found its voice, moving through a collection of objects that once had other lives. Bottle caps that once sealed drinks, pebbles smoothed by rivers, bits of glass that once belonged to something whole. Now together they sing. Making a wind chime feels like stringing together fragments of stories. You start with what you have, perhaps a length of driftwood, an old wire hanger, or a branch sturdy enough to hold the weight. Holes are drilled gently into the pieces you want to hang: pebbles, bottle caps, seashells, maybe even a few metal spoons rescued from a thrift store bin. Fishing line or strong thread becomes the invisible thread of the song. As you tie each strand, you imagine the way it will move. Some will tap gently against one another, making a low, soothing clink. Others will catch more wind, producing a higher, sharper note. The beauty is in the mix. The same way a garden's magic comes from different colors, shapes, and scents blending together. When you hang the finished chime in its place, under the eaves, from a pergola beam, or beneath the branch of a favorite tree, it doesn't take long for the air to discover it. Even the gentlest breeze sets it in motion. The sound is never exactly the same. It changes with the weather, the time of day, the season. The chime does more than make music for you. Bees and butterflies sometimes drift near, curious about the glint of sunlight on glass or metal. Birds pause on nearby branches, listening. The garden feels more alive, more conversational, as if you've given it another language to speak. And there's another layer of joy, knowing that what might have been thrown away is now part of something beautiful. Each clink is a reminder that creativity isn't about buying the perfect materials. It's about seeing potential in the things already in your hands. In the quiet of the evening, when the sun dips low and the air cools, the chime takes on a softer voice. You may find yourself lingering just to hear it, letting the sound wash over you like a slow breath. In that moment, the garden is not just a place, it's a song, and you've written part of it. There's a certain magic in turning stones into blossoms. On the side of the garden wall, flowers bloom that will never fade, petals crafted from pebbles gathered with care. They greet the morning light and linger through the night, holding their color and form through every season. The process begins with something humble, a handful of smooth stones, each chosen for its size, shape, and shade. Yellows, blues, and soft lavenders. Nature's palette already painted, needing only your arrangement to become something more. You lay them out on the ground first, shaping petals around a central stone, adjusting until the flower feels alive. Once you've found the right rhythm, each piece is fixed to the wall, perhaps with strong outdoor adhesive or set into a mortar base for permanence. The work is patient and deliberate. You press each stone into place, imagining the petals catching morning dew or casting soft shadows at dusk. These pebble flowers don't just decorate, they offer quiet invitations. Bees sometimes land on the wall, resting in the warmth of the sun-heated stones. Butterflies circle, drawn by the real blooms planted just below, creating a living blend of art and nature. Some designs are singular, a single blossom framed by empty wall space, letting it stand like a signature. Others cascade downward, petals flowing like a waterfall of stone. In the right light, the arrangement almost seems to move, echoing the way joy or memory can spill over unexpectedly. The charm of this project is that it fits anywhere. You don't need soil or a large yard, just a wall, a few hours, and the willingness to see beauty in small, solid things. And because the flowers are made from stone, they are constant companions, unfazed by wind, rain, or frost. Over time, you may find yourself adding more. A new blossom to mark a season, a cluster of smaller buds to fill a corner. Each edition carries its own story, perhaps stones collected from a trip, a beach walk, or a river you love. On a quiet afternoon, you You might sit with a cup of tea and watch the sunlight move across them, the petals brightening and softening in turn. They remind you that beauty can be built gently, piece by piece, from the most unexpected materials, and that sometimes the simplest creations last the longest. Some of the most charming garden pieces don't start as garden pieces at all. They begin as something else entirely. A chair that once sat in a kitchen corner, a drawer that once held neatly folded linens, a small cabinet that once kept spices close at hand. When their first purpose fades, they can be given another, one that lets them bloom again, literally. Imagine an old wooden drawer, its surface worn smooth by years of use. You clean it, perhaps give it a coat of paint in soft pastels, or let the natural grain tell its own story. Then you mount it securely to a garden wall, filling it with rich soil and planting herbs, trailing vines, or bright flowers that spill gently over the edges. In just a few weeks, the once empty drawer becomes a lively pocket of green, buzzing with pollinators. Or picture the backrest of an old chair, no longer sturdy enough to sit upon. You attach it vertically to a fence and hang small terracotta pots along its slats. Each pot holds something different: lavender, mint, zinnias, turning the chair into a vertical bouquet. It's playful, unexpected, and entirely unique to your space. Small cabinets can become miniature vertical gardens too. Remove the doors, line the shelves with pebble-covered planters, and let the flowers grow freely. You might even keep one shelf for decorative touches, painted stones, small lanterns, or driftwood accents that tie the space together. The beauty of using old furniture is that it brings character. The marks, scratches, and faded colors are part of its charm, telling a story before you even add plants. And because these pieces are often destined for the landfill, repurposing them not only adds style to your garden but also keeps something useful in the world a little longer. Pollinators seem to enjoy these pieces just as much as people do. Bees hover near the blossoms, butterflies rest on the chair back before moving on, and the garden as a whole feels more alive. It's a reminder that creativity isn't about starting from scratch. It's about seeing potential in what's already around you. By the time evening comes, your repurposed furniture catches the soft light, flowers glowing, wood warm from the day's sun. It's a piece of your garden's personality, built not from store-bought perfection, but from something with history, heart, and a second chance to bring beauty into the world. In some gardens, the magic is in the flowers. In others, it's in the little details that guide you through the space, the signs that tell you not just where to go, but how to feel. A hand-painted bee haven, tucked between rows of lavender, a weathered plank pointing toward a butterfly corner. Words become part of the landscape, weaving a story you can follow with your feet. Upcycled signage begins with what you already have. Old fence boards, driftwood, scraps of pallet wood, or even large flat stones. You clean them just enough to work with, keeping the character that years of use have given them. The letters can be carved, painted, or built from tiny colorful pebbles glued in place. Each style tells a different tale: rustic, playful, or elegant. The best signs aren't just practical, they're invitations. Pollinator Path encourages guests to walk slowly and notice the small winged visitors along the way. Herb Haven hints at the scents they'll discover if they lean closer. Even a simple plant name, written in a hand that curves with personality, turns a bed of basil into something with presence. Placement matters. Signs can stand tall on stakes at the garden's entrance, hang from tree branches, or rest low against planters where visitors must stoop to read them. Each location offers a different kind of interaction. Some signs welcome you from afar, others reward those who explore. Because the materials are reclaimed, each sign carries its own history. The plank that once supported a fence now points toward your wildflower patch. The smooth stone that once lined a driveway now sits nestled in time, bearing the name of the plant it shares space with. Pollinators benefit too indirectly. A sign can lead guests to the areas where you've planted bee and butterfly-friendly flowers, ensuring those blooms are noticed, appreciated, and cared for. And in some cases, the signs themselves, especially those decorated with natural materials, become small resting places for insects. In the late afternoon, when the sun turns gold, the letters seem to glow. The words feel like whispers from the garden itself, telling you where to wander, what to touch, and when to simply stand still and watch. They're not just directions. They're part of the experience, each one making the garden feel less like a place and more like a story you're stepping into. Not all art is meant to be kept indoors. Some pieces belong outside, where sun, wind, and winged visitors become part of the design. A butterfly bait station is one of those creations, half sculpture, half sanctuary, offering beauty for the eyes and nourishment for the smallest garden guests. It begins with something humble: an empty bottle, a discarded CD, a few smooth stones. In your hands, they become more than leftovers. A glass bottle is wrapped in jewel-toned pebbles, each one placed like a gemstone, the colors catching and holding the light. An old CD becomes a shimmering base, reflecting tiny rainbows whenever the sun glances across it. The magic lies in the center, a small pool or sponge soaked in nectar. Sometimes it's just a mix of water and sugar. Other times, slices of ripe orange, watermelon, or banana add their sweetness to the offering. You place them where butterflies will find them, among flowers near sunny resting spots, or along a quiet wall. Soon enough, the visitors arrive. A painted lady perches delicately, sipping from the edge. A swallowtail hovers for a moment before deciding the bright red of the mosaic beads is close enough to a flower to investigate. Even bees wander in, unbothered by the artful arrangement, focused on the promise of sugar and water. The sculpture becomes a living centerpiece. In the morning, dew catches on the stones, turning them into tiny prisms. By midday, the feeders hum with activity, each wing beat adding movement to the stillness of the display. And in the evening, the last golden light clings to the surfaces before fading into shadow. Creating one of these stations isn't complicated. A bottle, some adhesive, polished stones or beads, and a little imagination are enough to start. The design can be as simple or as ornate as you wish. What matters is that it offers a safe, accessible place for butterflies to feed. In time, you might find that these sculptures do more than attract pollinators. They draw you in, too, giving you reason to slow down, to watch, to notice details you might otherwise miss. A flicker of wings, the slow unrolling of a proboscis, the soft sway of a flower nearby. In this way, the sculpture feeds not just the butterflies. It nourishes your own quiet moments in the garden. In a quiet corner of the garden, where sunlight warms the wall and the breeze carries the scent of lavender, a small structure hums with life. It doesn't look like much from afar, just a patchwork of bamboo, pine cones, and wood slices. But up close, it reveals its purpose. This is a bee hotel, a wall-mounted sanctuary for the smallest and most essential of garden visitors. Creating one is a process of layering textures and intentions. You start with a frame, perhaps a wooden box, an old drawer, or a repurposed crate. Into it, you pack materials that offer shelter and nesting space. Hollow bamboo tubes, drilled logs, pine cones, bark, and even seed pods. Each section serves a purpose, offering a safe place for solitary bees and beneficial insects to rest, lay eggs, or hide from bad weather. But function doesn't mean giving up beauty. Around the edges, you might arrange pebbles in swirling patterns or create small insect sculptures from smooth stones and driftwood. A ladybug made from a round, red-painted stone rests at the corner. Dragonflies take shape in slender pebbles and twigs, their forms frozen in mid-flight. These details make the structure feel as much like a piece of art as it is a piece of habitat. Placed on a sun-facing wall, the bee hotel quickly becomes part of the garden's rhythm. In the morning, bees buzz softly as they come and go, their wings catching the light. By midday, a butterfly might rest on the wooden frame, or a beetle might explore the bark-lined crevices. The structure is never truly still. It holds a quiet, constant movement that reminds you the garden is always alive, even when you're not looking. The best part is knowing that you've made a difference. Many pollinator species are struggling to find safe nesting spaces in our increasingly tidy landscapes. A bee hotel offers them exactly what they need, and in return, they help keep your flowers blooming, your herbs healthy, and your garden balanced. Over time, the materials weather and soften, blending even more seamlessly with the wall and surrounding plants. It stops looking like something you built and starts feeling like something that's always been there. And when you see a bee disappear into one of the bamboo tubes, you can't help but smile, knowing your garden is not just a place for people. It's a home for life in all its smallest, most essential forms. Not every part of a garden's beauty comes from plants. Sometimes, it's the small, quiet details that make the space feel alive, like a series of wall plaques designed not just to please the eye, but to offer a safe resting place for the pollinators that keep the garden thriving. These plaques can take many forms: a weathered slice of wood inlaid with smooth river pebbles, a reclaimed tire, cut and reshaped, its interior lined with small ledges, even a simple square of stone, adorned with concentric patterns of pastel pebbles. Each design is as much about texture as it is about color, giving bees, butterflies, and other small visitors a place to pause. The process of making one is surprisingly simple. You begin with a sturdy base, wood, stone, or a repurposed object like a tire sidewall. Then, using strong outdoor adhesive, you arrange pebbles in patterns that please you. Ripples like water, spirals like shells, or sunbursts radiating from the center. The raised surfaces and subtle gaps between stones create perfect little footholds for delicate legs. Placed on a sunny wall, the plaques warm throughout the day, offering a comfortable landing for pollinators. Bees often stop to rest here before moving on to the next bloom, soaking up the heat in much the same way we might pause on a sunny bench. Butterflies settle in for a moment, their wings spread wide to catch the light. The beauty of these plaques is that they blend form and function seamlessly. From a distance, they are pieces of outdoor art, adding charm and texture to the garden walls. Up close, they reveal their true purpose: a microhabitat, a momentary refuge, a place where small lives can catch their breath. Over time, the surfaces take on a gentle patina. The stones soften under rain and sun, the wood darkens, and the whole piece begins to look as though it has always belonged there. Visitors to the garden may stop to admire the craftsmanship, never realizing they are standing in front of a resting place for some of the most important workers in the ecosystem. And when you spot a bee pausing on the warm curve of a pebble, or a butterfly fanning its wings in the afternoon light, you'll know these plaques have done exactly what you intended: turned a bare wall into a place of welcome, beauty, and quiet life. Some walls speak in texture, others tell stories in color. Here, the story is told in stone. Stones that carry tiny portraits of the pollinators who keep the garden alive. A painted bee rests within a nest of pine cones. A butterfly spreads its wings across a pebble's smooth curve. A ladybug hides among moss-covered bark. This is rock and stone wall art, where each detail is a small celebration of life. The process begins with finding the right stones. Smooth, flat pebbles are ideal, their surfaces ready to take on color. You wash and dry them, then let your imagination take over. A golden stripe for a bee's belly, delicate white lines for butterfly wings, tiny black dots for a ladybug's back. The painting is simple but intentional, bright enough to catch the eye, yet natural enough to feel at home in the garden. Once painted, the stones can be arranged in countless ways. Some are set into small mosaic frames made from broken tiles or driftwood, turning each insect into a little artwork of its own. Others are nestled into Gabion-style panels alongside pine cones, twigs, and bark, functional insect hotels with a decorative twist. The result is a wall that feels both alive and alive-looking, echoing the creatures that visit the garden daily. These art pieces do more than add beauty. The natural textures, pine cones, bark, and uneven stone, create tiny spaces for real insects to explore and rest. Bees sometimes perch on the warm stones, soaking in the sun before continuing their work. The art, in turn, becomes a subtle invitation for life to settle here. Because each stone is painted by hand, no two pieces are the same. Over time, the paint may soften under the weather, blending with the patina of the wall and making the insects look even more like part of the natural scene. A faded butterfly still holds its shape. A bee's yellow still catches the afternoon light. The effect is one of quiet discovery. Visitors might notice the art immediately, or they might spot it only after a second glance, realizing the wall is full of tiny creatures hiding in plain sight. For you, it's a way to blend creativity with care, making something that delights the human eye while offering comfort to the small lives that make a garden thrive. Sometimes the best garden treasures are the ones rescued from the edge of abandonment. A dented metal drum, a wooden barrel with weathered staves, things meant to hold water or grain, can be given a second life as planters that not only grow beauty but also invite pollinators to feast. The transformation begins with a little vision. You start by cleaning the drum or barrel, smoothing rough edges and deciding whether to preserve its rustic patina or give it a fresh coat of paint. Soft pastels can create a gentle cottage feel, while rich earth tones blend into a natural garden setting. For those who want a touch of texture, pebble mosaics wrapped around the base turn the container into something sculptural, catching the light and drawing the eye. Once prepared, the barrel is filled with rich soil, ready to cradle blooms. Zinnias burst upward with cheerful colors. Marigolds form golden halos, and lavender spills over the sides, scenting the air. Each choice is intentional, flowers and herbs that attract bees, butterflies, and other beneficial insects. The wide opening of the planter allows for generous planting, creating layers of color and height that feel abundant and welcoming. Placement is part of the magic. A half barrel can rest directly on the ground, grounding the garden with its sturdy presence. A vertical stack of smaller planters creates a tiered display, each level catching a different slice of sunlight through the day. Against a wall, the planters become part of the architecture, softening hard surfaces with life. It doesn't take long before the planters start buzzing. Literally, bees drift in from one bloom to another, their hum blending into the garden's background music. A butterfly lands gently on a petal, pausing as if to admire the flowers before moving on. The barrel's broad rim becomes a perch for the occasional bird, adding another layer of life to the space. Over time, the barrels themselves take on character. Wood darkens, metal gains a soft patina, and the pebble decorations settle in like they've always been there. They stop looking like recycled objects and start feeling like permanent fixtures, part of the garden story. And perhaps the best part is knowing that you've created something that bridges the practical and the poetic. A sturdy home for plants, a feast for pollinators, and a piece of art for anyone who takes the time to wander by and notice. So, our journey through these ideas comes to a gentle close. We have wandered past walls blooming with stone flowers, walked beneath swaying lanterns made from what once was forgotten, and paused at small places where bees and butterflies find rest. Each project, whether grand or humble, carries the same quiet truth. Beauty can grow anywhere, and often from the most unexpected beginnings. These are not just designs for the garden. They are reminders that every space, every hand, every moment can hold life and meaning. The joy of creating is not only in the finished piece, but in the way time slows while you work. The sound of pebbles settling into place, the scent of fresh herbs as you plant them, the soft hum of wings nearby, grateful for what you've made. At TERAFLORA Studio, we believe that every act of making, no matter how small, is a way of caring. Caring for your home, for the creatures that share it, and for your own sense of peace. This channel is a place for those who want their spaces to tell stories, where art and nature meet in the most personal of ways. If this time together has left you inspired, if you have felt even a moment of calm or possibility, I warmly invite you to subscribe to TERAFLORA Studio. It is how we keep walking these paths together, discovering new ways to turn the ordinary into the extraordinary, and ensuring that these ideas continue to bloom in many hands and